Azruddin Mohammed denies having visited the Venezuelan embassy in Georgetown. However, Vice President Jagdeo insists that there are video records and the Venezuelan ambassador was summoned into the Foreign Office and declared that Azruddin Mohammed was applying for a refugee visa into Caracas, Venezuela after the elections because he will lose and he will be searching for escaping extradition into the United States. Azruddin Mohammed is being targeted as a criminal. The United States imposed sanctions on him for the same reason they imposed sanctions to foreign countries and foreign dignitaries of various places who just speak their minds independently from wordings approved by Department of State. Venezuelans cherish candidacy of Azruddin Mohammed as he can provide useful peace, reconciliation, comfort, and business opportunities for Guyana and Venezuela. It is interesting that this scandal of visiting a registered embassy of an authorized country of the United Nations such as Venezuela is seen as delinquency. The United States regime has also imposed an ambassador in Georgetown who is a female, but as we know, females nowadays are more assertive than men. And she also declared that Guyanese should not vote for Azruddin Mohammed because he is sanctioned by the United States, and Guyanese should follow everything the United States tells them to do. Azruddin Mohammed, however, cleverly dismissed the visit to the embassy of Venezuela and is now asking burden of proof from Vice President Jagdeo. The strategies for earning votes of President Irfan Ali's PPP are laughable. It sounds like Venezuela always will be a scapegoat for Guyanese problems. All we need is to have a peaceful exploitation of the various regions west of the Essequibo River, such as Pomeroon Sumeram, Barima Waini, Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo, Cuyuni Masaruni, and their neighboring Delta Amacuro, Monagas, and Bolivar states. All of them form a petroleum-rich region that should provide enough wealth for both countries, Guyana and Venezuela. Azruddin Mohammed is very conscious of this shared prosperity that we could earn if we unite, which would explain his earlier interest in Venezuelan gold mining. Of course, we need to engage indigenous communities to understand what are their expectations of contrasting economic growth with environmental preservation and cultural development. Azruddin Mohammed still gets big benefit of the doubt because there is not too much writing about him. It looks like the official Guyana government narrative is reposted all over social media and alternative candidates are having a hard time in getting their message across. And as previously discussed, Guyana has a history of electoral fraud, just like Venezuela. We will be watching out as international community observation is needed in Guyana to preserve the will of the population. Moving back to Colombia, it is absolutely disgusting and intolerable that the family of recently deceased presidential candidate Miguel Uribe Turbay denied an opportunity for national reconciliation, prohibiting authorities of the Colombian state to attend the funeral, even though he was a member of a Senate which is supposed to represent pluralities of Colombians. Career politicians are so entrenched in their jobs that even national reconciliation unity matters, such as the burial of a national celebrity, are disguised as partisan, divisive, and resentful closed-door events. It was possible to hear the speeches of the people who spoke on the funeral of Miguel Uribe Turbay, and since there were no representatives of the Colombian government, they used the opportunity to position themselves for pre-candidacies for the presidency of Colombia while denying the current authorities to attend. The current authorities very respectfully, in the voice of Vice President Francia Marquez, affirmed that they would not disturb the political activities scheduled by the opposition parties at the funeral of Senator Miguel Uribe Turbay. It is necessary that other Latin American countries remind Colombia that peace, love, unity, national reconciliation, and South American understanding are desirable, and that partisan politics should not be abused during private funerals, which are supposed to convey those who are mourning loved ones. Here in Venezuela, we are finally experiencing happy days of Chevron vessel safely arrived into Bajo Grande proximity at Western Lake Maracaibo to fill up heavy crude coming from Petroboscan. Destination will be Valero refineries at the Gulf of Mexico in the United States. Transfers will be executed next to the island of Aruba. Venezuelan persons, businesses, and government will receive their share of cash in spite of Tammy Bruce and Marco Rubio's lies that Venezuelans are giving up our petroleum for free. That is not happening. Right now, we are in extreme hardship. Venezuelan families are living on charity in many occasions, but we wish to produce. I am taking these months of below average income to continue polishing my long-term project of enhancing the search engine optimization of my business website, of my personal website, and of my mother's website, as well as the completion of the 37 country project for oil, pipelines, and roads, and ferry routes that will connect all of South America, Caribbean, and Central America, despite hardship, because soon money will flow. I do not work at the petroleum industry. I work at the educational industry and the cinema industry. In the cinema industry, actually, they had a change in the bureaucrat that led the National Cinematography Center. He was substituted by a minister of culture. It was the same minister of culture who once claimed that Hugo Chavez was recovering in Cuba. 12 years ago, Minister Ernesto Villegas claimed that Hugo Chavez was recovering while he was actually either dying or he was already dead, but the news was not made public yet. The cinematography cliques and the networks are unhappy because they were accustomed to the previous bureaucrats. And of course, since Mrs. Maria Corina Machado is asking the United States to invade, the Venezuelan government is responsibly asking for an enhancement of our defense capabilities, to which of course we will receive help from Colombia, with which we have a binational agreement at the Catatumbo region. If Azruddin Mohammed wins the presidency of Guyana, he will be absolutely welcome in all these new integrated South American unities we are forming. If President Irfan Ali is re-elected in Guyana, he will still have to dialogue with Presidents Maduro, Petro, and Lula, and Claudia Sheinbaum, and a lot of other presidents who are not pleased with the way he is playing with the army of the United States of America, which is interested in our Stabroek and Orinoco oil. Stabroek and Orinoco should be united by a refinery at the Essequibo region, preferably at the Pomeroon-Supenam region, jointly managed by Guyana and Venezuela, and Venezuela will need to provide cash for this venture. It is not that Guyana or ExxonMobil will only develop that and Venezuela will just... No, Venezuela needs to learn how to work. And Guyana is showing some good work ethics, and it's good that Venezuela will be able to follow. In any case, I diverged from my original thought. The problem is that the Venezuelan government is temporarily removing income from the citizenry for national defense due to unfortunate invasion attempts by Maria Corina Machado and her United States House of Representative friends, such as Maria Elvira Salazar, Carlos Jimenez, and Mario Diaz-Balart. Many of those people speak Spanish more often than I speak English. The reason why I'm speaking English is because I wish to develop a business culture between Venezuela and Caribbean countries. And also because it's easier for me to communicate in English than in Portuguese with our friends from Brazil, because Portuguese is actually a difficult language for me. It looks easy, but it's difficult. So yes, unfortunately, Mrs. Maria Machado is in the business of empowering Venezuelans. She knows very well that every time she asks for invasion into our country, that requires that our government diverts resources devoted for peace, hospitals, education, roads, food industry, into national defense. So ordinary Venezuelans suffer, as we need to be more prepared. You have probably seen that in places such as Palestine or Yemen, it has been the same. They have had to arm themselves a lot to defend themselves from bombings. I do not think the probability of actual invasion is high, but I welcome government military preparations, because a well-prepared Venezuelan army will dissuade United States from inventing a new regime change game. And also, it is likely that Donald Trump is just playing with Marco Rubio and Richard Grenell as usual. And it seems that Richard Grenell is winning because he has finally been able to provide Chevron the license with the support of most of Venezuelan population. As I told you, Venezuelans are extremely happy with the presence of Chevron's vessel near Bajo Grande refinery at Lake Maracaibo, ready to take heavy crude into refineries managed or commissioned by Valero at the Gulf of Mexico in the United States of America. Another great country, which actually has the president needed, because Kamala Harris didn't seem to have a clue on how to run a country. So many people voted for Donald Trump. He's deporting a lot of people. Maybe those people should go back to their own countries and help develop their industries. But anyway, Donald Trump is meeting Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And at the time of this recording, Vladimir Putin has taken off from Vladivostok airport in Russia, and he is flying across the Kamchatka Peninsula, but still, and he should be landing at Anchorage, Alaska at any time. Maybe he has already landed by the time I finish this video. I wish good luck to both Presidents Putin and Donald Trump. I actually like them both a lot more than many presidents of many countries. Their positions are unique. No one can be in their shoes. And of course, it is clear that Venezuela, not only Ukraine, is a pawn on the chessboard they are playing. Will Russia give up their military or petroleum investments in Venezuela as an agreement with the United States? Probably not, especially if Chevron is already coming into Venezuelan petroleum industry. Rosneft is important to stay. Rosneft is known to operate oil fields in western Orinoco Faja at either Boyacá or Junín. And it is necessary that Rosneft remains, and it is necessary that Chevron remains. So if United States accepts Russian sovereignty in Donetsk and other eastern Ukrainian regions that are now being governed by local authorities sympathetic to Moscow, does that mean that Russia will just allow United States military to enter into Venezuela and oust Maduro when we know that Putin and Maduro are close friends? I don't like to use the term close friends for politicians, because we know that politicians are usually not friends of anyone. But they are definitely close allies. It looks like the United States only imposes sanctions and tariffs, and that's all the United States do. The rest of the world accepts some sanctions, accepts some tariffs, up to a certain extent. And when Trump or Rubio or anyone else from their government goes too far, the rest of the world unites to tell the United States that other countries also have a say and some unity. And since the BRICS summit is coming soon, and the South American countries will soon develop, we should see changes. It has been interesting to find out from the International Energy Agency that supply of oil will be excessive in 2026, and the forecast is no longer bearish as previously thought, but extremely bearish. It seems that oil prices will lower significantly below $60 a barrel in the near future, and hoping to be supported by $50 a barrel. Argentina and Guyana are definitely prepared to be profitable at $45 a barrel, and Venezuela is already profitable at $51 a barrel, which is the reading provided by oilprice.com on their Merey estimate, which is the only source I have found of Venezuelan price of oil. As you know, everything related to Venezuelan oil industry is very secretive. However, it is my goal that as we continue convincing other countries to unite to Venezuela for a regional, strong South American oil industry, and Venezuela takes a leading role in a much stronger fashion than it ever happened during the good old days of Petrocaribe, statistics from Venezuela will improve and will be more viable for the regime to share them with the international community. Unfortunately, Colombia is not accompanying us in this because President Petro is ultra-environmentalist, which is not good for petroleum industry of Colombia. However, the opposition of Colombia are intolerant and they politicize funerals, and in general they speak in a close-minded language which probably will not lead to Colombian voters to vote for such opposition, which is usually angry and in a bad mood. We need to start preferring politicians that are in a good mood and with good projects. And that does not include Maria Corina Machado, who still has not answered why she is claiming that a petroleum industry reactivation for Venezuela is $1.7 trillion, which in my opinion is a major overpricing, leading me to infer that Maria Corina Machado is not only a terrorist who wants to invade Venezuela and deprive our country from oil extraction, but she is also corrupt because she wants to empower her friends and give them allocations of investments that are worth less than $1.7 trillion because recovering Venezuela is not as expensive as the exaggerated figures proposed by Mrs. Maria Corina Machado.